Of hearings, we'll start with a hearing on Senate Bill 7. And Jason Long, reviser, if you give us a little bit of a brief on it. Thank you.
The chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 7 increases the statutory limits on the bond issuance authority for townships. And the changes basically make the authority based on township population or the purpose of the bond issuance. It amends a couple of statutes. The first one is 80-113. This statute provides that townships can issue general obligation bonds for the reconstruction, repair, and equipment of township buildings. Under current law, that issuance authority is only is limited to 1% of the assessed valuation of the taxable tangible property of the township. Under Senate Bill 7, there would be a tiered increase in that bond issuance authority. The 1% limit would remain in place for townships with a population of 5,000 people or fewer. If the township has a population between 5,000 and 10,000 people, then the authority would increase to 5% of the assessed tangible valuation. And if the township has a population of more than 10,000 people, it would have authority to issue bonds up to 10% of the valuation of its assessed valuation. The bill makes no changes to the underlying requirement that any bond issuance by the township must be approved by the township electorate at an election before they can issue those bonds. And then secondly, the bill amends 80-1910. This is a separate set of statutes for townships regarding fire districts and fire departments of the township. And it would increase the bond issuance authority for township fire departments. Currently, townships can issue general obligation bonds for construction equipping township fire departments up to 0.5% of the assessed valuation of the township. And Senate Bill 7 would increase that authority to 5% of the assessed tangible valuation of the township. That is a flat 5% for any township. It is not tiered like the other general reconstruction, repair, general obligation bonds under the earlier statute. It's a 5% for township fire departments. The bill also increases the maturity date on those fire department bond issuances from 15 years to 20 years. So they can issue a 20-year bond and take 20 years to pay off that bond obligation. The last amendment on page 2 of the bill merely specifies that the limits are to be calculated independently of each other. So the township could issue some GO bonds for reconstructing a township administrative building under those limits of 80-113, and then separately could issue bonds for building a new firehouse and for the township under that separate limit. And so one doesn't impact the other in terms of calculating the limits on the bond issuances for the township. The bill did pass the Senate on a final vote of 39-0 and would go into effect on July 1st this year if enacted. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Committee, are there any questions for the reviser before we get started? Representative Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, could you just define for us who falls under the category of township for this bill?
It's the recognized, duly organized townships in the state of Kansas.
Okay, I guess let me clarify then. So, like, I live in a township, but I'm in rural areas. Does this apply to the cities as well, having townships?
No,
or
this is just... so yes, you have multi layers of local government. So within your township and the services that your township provides, to the extent they need to issue bonds for township purposes, then this applies. It doesn't apply to the city. It doesn't apply to the county. It's just, and so the electorate who would vote on whether or not the township could issue bonds and assessed to pay those bonds would be limited to the people who reside within that township.
Anyone else? Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Reviser. We have two oral proponents, and the first one we have listed is Representative Kyle McNorton. of the 50th District. Would you come to the microphone and talk to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow colleagues. I'm Kyle McNorton, representative of 50th District, which is North Topeka, which includes the Soldier Township area. This is the area, the township that I live in. And just to explain a little bit on Representative Barth is our township has over 15,000 people in it and is an urban area. So it's not like a lot of townships you may think that are rural, just rural areas with some farms and that type that cover it. Our township and Mission Township, which is west of Topeka here, is really a rural area. If we incorporate it into a city, we'd be in the top 20 to 25 largest cities in the state of Kansas. So it's really an urban area that Soldier Township covers. We have our own EMS, our own fire department, along with the road department and other things that you think of a township might do is mainly a road, they may have one road grader in that township, but, we have a whole facility, multiple trucks and graders and almost all of our 98% of our roads in our township are maintained and are all paved. So it's a different situation for our township than it is for a lot of townships. And that's why we came up with the tiered system. A lot of the smaller townships, probably don't need that bonding authority. The medium townships, may or may not, but we'll leave it up to the vote of the people once the board decides that they want to do a project, because both of these have to go to the electorate to be voted on. Any bond that would be passed has to go through the election process. So with that, Revisor Jason Long did a great job explaining the bill, but I just want to know that it really could impact there's only two of them that are over 10,000 people. Soldier Township, north of Topeka here, and Mission Township, which is just west of Topeka, that covers that area. So it's really only those two townships that are in the upper tier that would be affected by that one. So I'll be happy to stand for questions at the time.
Good morning.
My apologies. I'm going to say that on the microphone for the audience. Audrey Guzman is here from Soldier Township. Thank you for coming.
Morning, Chair and members of committee. I'm here for the Soldier Township. I am the Township Administrator. I yield from City Administration, so I have a lot of background in this. The thing that we're asking is, townships are very unique. We're fairly limited in what we can do. And this approach is not a one-size-fits-all approach, which is kind of what was in the past. The main thing that has kind of pushed this is whenever this legislation took place, the first piece of this has not since been updated since 1939. In 1937, whenever our fire department took place, or when our fire department was established, we had just around 4,000 in population. Our annual call volume was about 100. Today, we're over 15,000 in population, and our annual call volume just this last year was over 1,200. So we've increased significantly in our population and in our services that are required, but the bonding limits have not increased with that. Just another little piece of information. So the dollar for that 1939 dollar would be equivalent to 13 of today's US dollars. So again, not trying to not go with a one-size-fits-all approach. I came from Western Kansas, and townships kind of were as like one guy with a grader taking care of the dirt roads back there. We have a full road department with 10 full-time personnel. We have 30 personnel with our fire department. Of those, 9 are full-time, and then a administrative department with 2 full-time employees. So we have 50 employees just in our township. We're not like other townships. So the 5% for the fire piece of that, we kind of took from the fire district legislation. It's 5% is what the township, our town fire districts are set to. Our services and what we're limited to are no different than that of the fire district, and it is very limited on which townships can have a complete fire department running on their own. So with that, I'll stand for any questions or clarification.
We'll go ahead and start with, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Guzman? Representative Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Guzman, I actually am just curious, can you give us any specifics, like what spurred the need to make this change specific to your township? To give us a little bit more explanation, because we just don't do bills to do bills. So
Absolutely.
you could provide us some details, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we just went through the process of getting a new maintenance building for our road department. Because of that, we were limited in what we could do, and we went the bank route because of the statutory limits that we faced. With that is increased interest for the residents because we had to go a bank lease versus a bonding option. And now with the added caveat, as we're looking at updating our fire department, it hasn't been updated since the 1940s, I believe. And when it was first created, it was 2 full-time fighters in there, and our call volume was fairly small. It was in the 1,000 or the 100 range. So the cost of fire departments are significantly more than that of a maintenance building. Here in Kansas, the last few that have been built have been between the 5 and 11 million range. We'd probably be on the lower end of that, but still yet, even with the current legislation, we'd be capped at, I believe it's like 1.1 million, or no, sorry, 2.1 million. So that's not even half of what the lower end spectrums of those fire departments are built. So that's kind of the initiative that set this all forward.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Guzman. And any questions for Representative McNorton? Yes, Representative Pishney.
Not a question, but I appreciate both of them mentioning it. The thing that I really like about this bill, and Representative McNorton mentioned in his testimony, and that is this tiered approach, because not one size fits all. And our townships can't even relate to this township. So I really appreciate the thought that's gone into this, the tiering of this, because of the one-size-fits-all syndrome.
Yes, Representative McNorton.
One thing I failed to mention earlier, and thank you, Representative Pishney, is if we incorporate, I touched on that, and it's been talked about for a long, long time to incorporate into a city of North Topeka, and of course, we name it McNortonville. But I don't know if Audrey agrees with me, but anyways, we would have a bonding limit of up to 30% at that point. So, you know, and the tiered approach, I think, makes sense that we are looking at that, and we're still trying to keep it under control with some caps, but it still, of course, has to be approved by any bond would have to be approved by the electorate. So,
Anyone else?
thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. We have, is there anyone else that wishes to speak as a proponent? Not seeing any. Is there anyone who would wish to give testimony neutral or opposed? And not seeing anybody in the audience and no one online, I will close this hearing on SB 7. And we will move to hearing on SB 104. And Mr. Revisor, if you'd give us a shout out.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 104 amends one statute, KSA 19-2670. And this statute is regarding the creation of a Citizens Commission on Local Government in certain counties. The statute was enacted in 1968 and has never been amended. Upon its enactment, the statute only applied to Wyandotte County. With subsequent population shifts and changes in the state, the statute now applies to Shawnee County. The The statute requires the county to create a citizens commission on local government that consists of the Board of County Commissioners, the governing bodies of each city of the first class, the trustees of each township in the county, the mayors of each second and third class city that lie in the county, and the chairpersons of the governing bodies of any other political subdivisions of the county. So a collection of local government leadership for the county would make up the Citizens Commission. Senate Bill 104 makes a fairly simple change in line 8 of the bill to change the shall create to a may create. And so it gives the county some discretion as to whether or not to establish the Citizens Commission on Local Government. It's my understanding that this commission has actually never been created and formed and met as specified in the statute. The bill was placed on the consent calendar in the Senate and passed on a final vote of 40-0. This change would go into effect this July 1st if enacted, and with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee for the reviser. Yes, sir. Representative Schlingen's person, season.
That works. Thank you for that. Do you have a little history about this? Didn't this have something to do with the unified government of Wyandotte County and something to do with what that means historically? I mean,
It may have. I mean, the statute was enacted in '68, and the unified government of Wyandotte came, several years after that. And so it may have been there was talk about it, and so the statute might have come into existence as a precursor to possibly a unified government for Wyandotte County by bringing all of this local government leadership onto a single commission. Might have been, as I said, a precursor to an actual, unified government for the county. But I do, at the time it was initially enacted, it was enacted for Wyandotte County as they were the only county meeting the population specifications under the statute. But then again, with population shifts, they're now larger than that, and Shawnee County has moved into that range and is now, I believe, the only county in that population range that's specified under the statute.
thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for the reviser? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, next we will move on to proponent oral. And I have Ashley Bigert. I hope I pronounced that right. Assistant Shawnee County Counselor.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Ashley Biegert, so very
Biegert,
close.
I'm sorry.
Biegert all the time, you're fine. Thank you, members of the committee, for your time today. We are asking for a minor one-word change, as the reviser pointed out, to make the establishment of this committee discretionary rather than mandatory. And there are several reasons for that, as laid out in our written testimony. I won't belabor the point, but to your question, Representative, Wyandotte County did consolidate 30 years after this statute was put into place. In 1997 is when Wyandotte County consolidated with the city of Kansas City. And that was done under a very specific statutory framework for consolidation that was enacted in the 1990s. Very similarly, Shawnee County has also gone through this consideration of consolidating government with the city of Topeka. And we too obtained our very specific statutory scheme for how to consider consolidation of government. And we did that in 2005. There was a very thorough process. We came together with a plan, and we subjected that to the voters of Shawnee County, who rejected that. So we've already, for all intents and purposes, done what this specific statute is designed to do by considering the consolidation of government. And we are the only county currently who falls within this statutory framework. Now, it's my understanding that Wyandotte County actually sits at about 169,000 now, so they've actually fallen outside of the threshold. Once they reach 170,000, under the mandated language of the statute, they would be required again to put together this committee and consider what they've already done, which is consolidation. So it's really quite superfluous. Not to mention, at least for Shawnee County, putting together this commission would end up being 59 members. So we would be required to put together 59 people to consider what's already been considered, and there's really no implementation procedure in the statute. So once we come up with a plan, that's pretty much it. That it really has no teeth. The reason, we are suggesting that the statute remain and as opposed to just asking to repeal it altogether is there may be a county, for instance, Douglas County, I think is currently setting at 120,000 that ultimately may want to consider consolidation in this way in the future. But at least for us and for the next county up, it's really quite ineffective, inefficient, and really impractical given the number. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions to begin with? Are there any questions to finish with? We appreciate your testimony, Ashley, and we'll continue here very shortly. We do, committee, you have two proponent written, one from Amanda Stanley, the city of Topeka, and one from Jay Hall, Kansas Association of Counties. We have no written or in-person opponents showing, but I would open opportunity for anybody who is either neutral or an opponent to this bill, if you'd come to the microphone and state your name. All right, not seeing any, that leaves us with closing SB 104 as a hearing. And I will move back to the opportunity for any questions, but we'll take that questions as a point of whether or not we work these bills. I'm going to move to SB 7 and see if there's anybody that would be in opposition to going ahead and working SB 7. Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'm not in opposition. I would move that we suspend the rules and work SB 7. Seems to be real non-controversial and local, and certainly a township board if that's favorable of the committee.
That's seconded by Representative Slinken-Sheepen. Okay. And is everybody in agreement? All in favor, say aye. Okay. So now we're in a point to work it. I think we've heard the information close enough. If there's anything more you need described by the reviser before we move forward towards a motion, let me know. Anyone else? Okay. I would entertain a motion. Representative Flex.
Mr. Chair, I move that we move SB 7 out of the local government committee, favorable for passage.
And is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wolf is seconds. Okay. And all right. If there's no further comment or questions, all in favor of that motion, say aye. All opposed? And it passes out. SB 104. Representative Blex.
Mr. Chair, we're having so much fun. I move that we suspend the rules and work SB 104.
There's a nod from the same second from last time, and that would be Representative Slinken-Sheepen. All right. Is there any discussion or comments before we take an action? Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment to help people understand who I am and where I'm coming from a little bit more. But like I mentioned on that first one, I like the tiered. On this one, I really like the word may. We have too many shells in state law adversely affecting local government, but the may gives them options. So I appreciate that about this bill.
Thank you, Representative. Anyone else? Okay. Representative Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This might be a question for the reviser, and with the May, does this allow for someone under a certain size to do this? Is there anything stopping it, or they would have to come and get a new bill passed if they wanted to have this in place? Or would they be able to do this if they were a smaller county than the 170,000?
Mr. Reviser.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, there is nothing in statute prohibiting the creation of a commission along these lines, but it would be completely voluntary amongst all the participants without a statute. The statute, even with the switch to a may, if the county does exercise that discretion and create the Citizens Commission on Local Government, then the local government leadership specified under the statute would be members of that commission. Anybody operating outside of the statute, it would be solely on their own as to who would be members of that commission and whether those members would need to actually attend commission meetings because there would be no statutory authority behind it.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Representative Van Houten. Oh, you're just saying hi, okay. If there's no further, we do have a motion and a second. Is there a motion and a second on the bill, on SB 104? We have a motion from Representative Slingon-Seepin to pass it out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That was a
As
guess.
a member of the Shawnee County
I'm not
delegation,
clairvoyant.
I'd like to move SB 104 out of committee favorable for passage.
And is there a second? Seconded by Representative Collins. Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of passing SB 104 out favorably, say aye. All opposed? And it passes unanimously. And thank you, committee, for taking care of business. We have two more items of business today. We have the approval of the minutes that were sent out last week from the committee assistant. And that's for February the 14th and February the 17th. Is there a motion regarding those minutes? Representative Wolf moves to approve, seconded by Representative Blex. And if no further discussion, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? And it passes. All right, we have one bill to consider in our next meeting on Wednesday. And if you'll be here for that, and we also have a presentation from municipal utilities that's going to be, we'll do that after our item of business, and that will be on Wednesday. So please be ready for that, the ones that can come, and we will see you on Wednesday. And our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.